I'm just gonna look down. Let's see. Jason, would you like to start? Wait, we can't hear you.
Can I not start?
Okay, okay. Who wants to start? Anyone? Genevieve, Mikhail, yes.
Yeah, I suppose I could start. Where exactly do you want me to start? That is.
I mean, the opportunities you took from Rutgers, you know, start from there.
All right, cool. So, hey guys, my name is Mikhail. I graduated in 2019. Did like 5 years for the ecology degree, and starting off at Rutgers, I thought I was going to be environmental science, and then I heard I had to take Orgo, and then I thought that wasn't something for me. So I decided to try out ecology. Was honestly a better decision than what I thought it was going to be. A lot of great professors, a lot of you know Dr. Lathrop, like Dr. Sukdeo, Dr. Maslow as well. And I think one of the best opportunities I took, other than going with this program, is taking field techniques. Has any of you here taken the field techniques course at ENR? Anyone? Yeah? No?
Not yet.
No, not yet. All right, cool. So I think that is a highly recommended course. So at Rutgers, I was like, I came from Jersey City, so I wasn't too sure about. I didn't have that much of a environmental focus upbringing, so a lot of things I was learning here at Rutgers, I wasn't too comfortable with, or well, not comfortable with, or I just didn't know. And taking the field techniques course, to kind of focus in on what I liked about this field and what I want to look towards for like how I want to work in the environmental field. So being out there, I think the second week we were on Cape May and we were out on the salt marshes, and I just thought how amazing these places are. And I realized, hey, I really want to do watershed work and wetland work. So, and that also allowed me to, this was my first opportunity to work with Dr. Lathrop, and I was a field steward for the Eco Preserve, which actually came in handy for like multiple jobs later on. Because of that, I was able to work at Liberty State Park for a while. I did some natural works, like some field surveys, did some kayak stuff too, which is actually super fun. And a lot of these other opportunities that I got kind of gave me experiences that came in handy like down the line, like looking for jobs now ever since the pandemic happened. So before COVID, I actually had a job set up with the Nature Conservancy as a freshwater shed assistant. My bad guys. Freshwater restoration assistant. That was a mouthful. And that was great. That was exactly what I wanted to work on. Because as I mentioned, I wanted to work on like water systems, and working on restoration projects for the watershed seemed like really great. But COVID happened, that got washed, which was unfortunate. But during that time, I also took part in getting my GIS certification, which also came in handy later on. I suggest if anyone isn't on track to doing that right now, look into that or start doing that or take some classes for that. It's coming really in handy, especially in terms of just, it's always brought up, especially in interviews. They're like, oh, do you have some GIS experience? It's like, oh yeah, actually, I have your certifications. And then they're like, oh, okay. So, but no, so take advantage of a lot of the things that you're doing here at Rutgers, and even if you're not sure about where you're going with this, maybe some classes that you take will give you an idea of what direction you want to go. And right now, I just got a job to work with the Nature Conservancy again, which was lucky enough. I'll be working down at Cape May as one of their field stewards, and yeah, it'll be a great time. So, that's just where I am now. How other things I've done have led me here, and yeah. Oh,
I was just gonna say that's gotta be awkward to be coming back there. It's like, hey, you let me go. It's like,
oh no.
Oh,
For the Nature Conservancy.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they did because of COVID. They were like, "Hey guys, due to some reasons, blah blah."
Yeah.
The whole separate position, and honestly, it'll with the 1K May, it will let me do a lot of independent things as well because they want me to kind of lead my own projects. And when you get positions like that, you want to take advantage of it and kind of make the most of it. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say awkward. If anything, I think it helped me because sorry.
Oh.
If anything, I think it'll help me because I was like, oh, I actually talked with this person. They're like, oh, you talked to her. So if anything, they may have communicated with each other and they said, hey, this guy was great. That's not gonna work out. But you should take him. So
I would just say it's kind of awkward, they let you go and now they're rehiring you. It's like, okay, well, how you like me now?
Could give him an
Sorry.
excuse to walk in with some swag. See, you didn't get enough of me.
Yeah.
Serves you right. You should have known better.
Yeah. Any questions at all? No.
Mikhail, can you tell me again when you graduated? I have a bad feeling I'm the oldest person on this call.
Oh, I graduated in 2019.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah.
And you made reference to Dr. Maslow, who was actually junior to me.
Really?
During my match, yeah. Lori, I don't want to trip you guys up, so feel free to tell the old man to shut up at some point if I start getting into stories of waving my fist and saying stay off my lawn and stuff.
I mean, it's good to have different perspectives on time and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be okay to have different kind of years going on.
Also, I'd love to hear stories about young Dr. Maslow, if you have anything you want to share.
Yeah, that would actually be fantastic. That would be great.
Well, she's remained pretty awesome. So if you know her now, not much has changed. When I met her, she and her partner were sort of just navigating their marriage and stuff. And she was trying to recruit as many people as possible for her field work out in the Chesapeake and stuff. So I sort of went out with her. We set up her cages. We were trying to assess what kind of predators are going to go in and kill off little birds and things. So I learned a lot in the process. I'm not sure that I was much help to her, mostly klutzy and not willing to handle birds. But notwithstanding, I think the best thing about Brooke was she sort of everything that came her way, she tackled it with grace. She'd get frustrated with the schedules, having to herd cats, especially when it came around time to set up her committee and try to establish the defense, which a lot of you will experience shortly, I imagine, if you haven't already. And in spite of all that, she kept her enthusiasm about the field. She kept reaching out to people. She was a good part of our graduate student association. It's really sort of inspiring to work with someone like that. And she'll sort of blindside you. She'll say something casually like, oh, I'm the editor of this journal and I'm trying to work through all these research grants and stuff. But while I was at it, I wanted to ask you, do you know anything about that snail that's back there? Wait, back up a second, Brooke. What? It's like, I got to treat you with more respect, I think. So yeah, I don't have a lot of embarrassing stories of her. In fact, I think the reverse is probably true. So I should stop talking about that.
I worked in her lab last semester. I'm so sorry, the dogs are freaking out. I worked in her lab last semester, and she's like wild and crazy, and her partner is also like so accomplished. It's so wild. Also, her kids are smarter than me at like so many stuff. They're like, just like, oh, like this is what bird this is, and I'm like, I'm glad you know that. I don't.
I feel better. I'm not alone in this. So folks, since I have been blabbing, and again, Lori, I apologize for derailing it, but I should probably introduce myself a little
Yes.
bit.
I was about to say that's a good segue into your story now.
So my name's Aabir Banerji. I graduated, believe it or not, in 2011. And I was one of those, as one of my, in fact, I think it was Brooke who said this to me at some point. I was sort of the poster child of Rutgers when you think about it, Rutgers academia. The reason I say that is I went to Rutgers as an undergrad in what was then Cook College, which doesn't exist anymore. It's become SEBS. At least I think it's become SEBS. When I graduated, I stayed at Rutgers after some drama and ended up in the graduate school for ecology and evolution. I don't know if that major is still what it used to be. Went on to do a visiting professorship, again at Rutgers, and again with my PhD advisor, Peter Moore. Came back a couple of times, did guest lectureships and stuff. Eventually, I managed to sort of get something of a grown-up job in the form of a postdoc, which I did at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. Following that, well, in between, I did a few minor things like get married and, shift around a bit. Came back to the States, having ditched all of my potential job possibilities in Europe, and was unemployed for almost 2 years, living with my parents and my wife in New Jersey. Eventually managed to get a job with the US EPA, which I was originally about to say no to because I had all sorts of biases about the EPA. And on top of that, the job that the guy who was spearheading and reached out to me on was not one that I had applied for. I, at the time, was applying for this sort of technician position that was happening in Virginia so that I can go back to the Chesapeake Bay and possibly hang out with people like Brooke again. And my resume in that application magically made its way up the chain to a guy in Cincinnati, Ohio, who at the time was sort of gallivanting as a branch chief and about to be promoted into a more senior position in this amorphous government structure. I didn't know all that at the time. I was thinking in my head, I don't want to work for a government. I've only heard bad things about EPA. I didn't even realize they do research. And nothing about the job description that this guy's pushing was of interest to me. You know, my passion is community ecology. I love studying species interactions. I have since I was 12. So I was pretty focused. And the job description that they gave me was about a page long and included things like has to be well versed in microbiological techniques, including development of primers and molecular assays. And I'm like, nope, not interested. You know, I've looked through a microscope and I did some microcosm work that doesn't count as microbiology. I don't want anything to do with that. I hate genetics. I hate statistics. I hate pretty much everything that this talks about. There are other parts that I discovered later were written by other colleagues as well. You know, they said in addition to those microbial chops, you had to be an advanced ecosystems ecologist, showing that you've done field work involving nutrient cycling across multiple landscapes and have metapopulation dynamic backgrounds. And on top of that, you should be a well-balanced soil chemist and have understanding about soil structures and stuff. So by the end of this, I'm like, you're either looking for Johnny Quest's dad type PhD or someone who doesn't exist. Clearly, they're just sort of throwing stuff at the wall and waiting for something to stick. In spite of all that, since the guy who was spearheading it, the guy who would sort of be my pseudo mentor, reached out to me, I felt guilty about just saying, screw off, you know? So I said, look, the reality is I don't think I qualify. I haven't actually applied for this, so I'm not even in the system yet. And I'm not sure my resume would reach you if it did. But I'm a community ecologist, and some of the broader topics that you guys talk about, I could address from my own perspectives. And I can imagine that'd be a lot of fun given the scientists that are involved in writing up this job description. You know, one of the topics was harmful algal blooms. Another was green infrastructure. And all these things that I had sort of an interest in, but I laid it out for them saying, I don't have any of these qualifications. I sure am excited and passionate about this stuff, especially if you let me do it my way. But, you know, not interested in government, not interested in moving. So I won't take it personally if you say get lost. Somehow or another, that worked. they got back to me after several months, and this is standard with the government. It takes months to do anything. By they, I mean a panel, a review committee for this particular position, which was a postdoctoral position, and it was funded directly by the government. And it consisted of about 12 people, 6 of whom became major mentors for me in my time there. But the first interview was a bit of a joke. They called me up on the phone and they had all of those dozen people in a sort of sitting in a round table and each taking turns to harass me. It was like my PhD defense all over again. And you know, the first 7 questions all sort of follow the same pattern. It's like, do you believe you have the skills to do this? I said, no, I don't have the skills to do this, and I'm not even interested in doing those things. Okay, so why'd you apply? I'm like, I didn't. So, but eventually we got to the part where I said to them, as an ecologist, here's how I would approach these things. This is something of interest. So for instance, you talked about harmful algal blooms. You talked about finding molecular assays that would allow you to track cyanobacteria that cause these blooms and stuff. I don't know about any of that stuff. That's not necessarily how I'd approach it. Might be a good tool. But one thing I am interested in is if you want to know what causes blooms, you have to stop treating a lake like a chia pet. You know, it's not just cyanobacteria in water with some nutrients growing when it suits them. There are a whole host of organisms all interacting with each other. There are things that should be able to eat those cyanobacteria or infect them or compete with them. And if they're not doing all that, we should be scratching our heads and asking why. So the first thing I'd want to do is get an understanding of that system. Try to use some of those techniques that you're talking about to understand what critters are out there. And I would go a step further. If you want to talk about how you might disrupt those blooms, it's not just about understanding the cyanobacteria themselves and their chemical signaling. It's understanding their interactions with other species and how that cell-to-cell communication works. You know, there are terrestrial analogs. If I talk about the jasmonite pathway in trees and stuff, it's analogous with these things. In order to have a bloom, you need a quorum of these microbes. They're responding to the same kinds of stuff. So mess with that signaling, you can mess with the whole thing, and that might actually be a solution. You know, they got all excited when I started talking and the light bulb started going off. So just like PhD defense, you know when it clicks, because now it becomes a fun conversation. You've sort of taken control of it. So cutting my rant short, I got that job. And as my luck would have it, I got it just when the Trump administration came into power. And 3 major restructurings of the EPA happened all in a row. The guy who was supposed to bring me on for the job got promoted out of management, which means he could not be involved in the process and he could not be there for me on that side. Nobody knew who I was supposed to be assigned to. So the week that I arrived, I had no office, no resources. The HR people were able to reach me at the door, but they had no idea where to send me. And nobody had given me a clear message as to what project I'd be working on. That was my introduction to the EPA. 4 years later, I realized it was the best job I've ever had, much to my own surprise. It was really rewarding to be able to work with all of these diverse scientists who in turn had collaborations not only throughout the US, but with other countries. And being part of a government research body allowed me to have access to resources that I wouldn't have had if I had stayed in academia. And on top of that, the pace was a little different. Even though you've got different pressures because you're politically funded and you're on taxpayer dollars, you are not chasing grants in the same way as you would be in academia. You're not constantly having to justify yourself through publications as much because the government's not interested in that. They're interested in being able to show the public that they're supposedly doing something or getting regulatory results. So that changed my perspective on a lot of things. I still am passionate about my subjects, which means I am going to be a pain in the ass even in the government, but it sort of put things in perspective and forced me to be more applied, whereas I was more leaning towards theoretical in the past. That postdoctoral position was a term position. And despite the odds, despite being there when they were doing massive cutoffs of government employees, I managed to stretch it out to 4 years. And I had a lot of support. But once I hit that 4-year mark, that was it. So again, I was on the job hunt. And again, it lasted a little over a year. In fact, almost a year and a half this time. And like my friend Mikhail over here, I got called back to the EPA afterwards, this time in my current position, which is actually a permanent position with a bit of promotion. And they've asked me to set up a harmful algal blooms research headquarters here in Duluth, Minnesota. So I'm just getting started on that. With COVID, nothing's moving, and it's the government in any case, so nothing tends to move very quickly anyway. But it's turning out to be really exciting for me. And, you know, being next to the lake is good for my mental health as well as for my research opportunities. So that's my background. That's what my experience has been. And looking back on it, I can tell you a million things about what Rutgers did for me and being able to make that all happen and to give me the sort of joy and skills to do what I'm doing. I'm gonna shut up and let you guys talk now.
Seems like networking is a very important part of, you know, even while you were in school. Well, this is also for all the speakers, I guess, while you're in school, networking, and also outside, because like it seems like you make those connections even after you leave the place, you end up going back. It seems like that.
Independent of whether it helps you be successful in your career, I think it's worthwhile anyway. I have a lot of lasting friendships because of that. And my research has benefited from having the interactions that I've had with people.
Any questions, anyone? Or should we leave the questions for last? Leave the questions for last, okay. So Jason or Genevieve?
I could go next.
Yes, okay.
Can I share my screen? I
Yes.
did like a little, I did a really short PowerPoint, like mostly for like myself, so I don't forget to say things. But okay, so can everyone see?
Yes.
Cool. So I graduated in 2019. Me and Mikhail actually have a really similar background. Like we graduated high school together, and we both didn't know what we wanted to do when we got to college. Like I was undecided for a bit. And I got into the program, ecology, evolution, and natural resources program, because like I was taking a bunch of electives, and like all the ecology electives had like lab outside. So I was like, I'm about that. Like I don't want to hang in the basement doing like biolab. So yeah, I started taking a bunch of classes. My first kind of exposure to research was at the Chrysler Herbarium Mycological Collection under Dr. Elena Struve. I did like my 3-credit like internship stuff with her. And that was a really great introduction for me into plants, because I feel like there's a lot of plant classes that we offer in our major, but like I feel like it's very wildlife skewed. And one of the things I think that's helped me in like looking for jobs is like having experience with plants. So like that was a really great like introduction to research for me. And then after that, I did a rescue research project in the Crystal Lab over at ENR, specifically the GeoHealth Lab. And one wasn't really super ecology focused. It was more like kind of like urban planning and like open green. Like my rescue project is like we took a bunch of like Twitter data, and we were checking out if there was like a difference between people's moods inside and outside of urban spaces in New York City, namely Central Park and Prospect Park. And that was mostly like a GIS project, which was pretty cool for me, because like GIS is just kind of like one of those things that always comes up in job interviews. Like even if the job description doesn't have GIS stuff, if they see it on your resume, they always ask you about it. So that's always nice to have. And for me, that was a really cool, the landscape architecture department at Rutgers. I actually got my next research opportunity like based out of the landscape architecture department. And I think like the LA department's really cool. Like I was grateful to have like a bunch of friends in that as undergrad, and there's a lot of like cross pollination, like kind of like stuff between ecology and landscape architecture, like especially if you're into plants, like urban ecology, green and urban planning, stuff like that. So I eventually got a like a leadership position doing GIS stuff for Dr. Hartman in the landscape architecture building, and yeah, I helped her out with. We were looking at the Lower Delaware watershed and the Raritan River, and we were looking at. I worked mainly on two projects over there. Dr. Hartman, we were looking at how impervious surface affects like stream and watershed health, and that was a big GIS project I did over there. And the other one is I helped out Johnny Quispy. He was a graduate student at the time, and we were looking at marsh sediment accretion in response to climate change. So like we were doing a lot of field work like on the Raritan River, just installing stuff like in high tide and like working with power tools like out over there. And a big like component of that was like looking at like a lot of like the plant and vegetation stuff. Um, I got to do like a lot of other like helping out her other grad students in like other projects with like forest sampling, some urban planning stuff in Trenton. We were looking at places for community gardens and stuff. So I definitely recommend. I had a very like positive like. I wish like I took more classes like or more electives in the landscape architecture department because like there's like a lot of cool like stuff that like kind of like bleeds into ecology and landscape architecture. I thought it was really cool. And yeah, so like most of my undergraduate stuff in ecology and GIS kind of mixed in between there. And yeah, this is a picture of me on the Raritan River doing some work, and I got to do. And while I was at what's it called? Rutgers, like I was involved in wildlife. Another really cool club to be a part of is Rutgers University for Primate Conservation. If you're interested in like that kind of side of conservation, they do a lot of cool education field trips, and they do like every semester or at least every year we have like a big project, and they try to like work with like a local zoo and like do stuff, doing installations for them, and also for 1 year I was in the Rutgers Landscape Architecture Club, and that was really cool. The big project while I was there, they're working on a pollinator garden for Bucolic Park. So that was a really fun like kind of way to like get like into like native plants and like make a lot of like really good connections. And kind of unrelated to like our major, but I was also like I worked at the radio station for a couple of years, and that's like a I think one thing that like really helped me was like I had a really diverse set of interests. Like even if you do stuff in college that isn't necessarily related to your major, it's really like helpful like to build your resume up. Like people always have questions about like me working at the radio station. Like I had like a leadership position there, so people really like to like talk about stuff like that. And especially in the environmental field, especially if you're doing field work and stuff like that, you're like going to be working in groups of people. So like if you have any like experience with like communication, like coordinating with other people, like working in teams, that's like always a really great like interview question that pops up. And then yeah, after I graduated in 2019, I ended up working at Middlesex County. I was a GIS intern over there, and I was working on their bike guide. And so we made like a whole map of the county, and we were assessing like bike infrastructure and stuff like that, and basically like building a map. We made a map book like from scratch, and I also participated in their like farmland and open space planning, and like their overall destination 2040 planning. And this job experience is like really cool for me because like it got to like expose me to like some of the more planning and like landscape architecture side of things, which wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it was like nice to kind of have that experience to know that like that's not exactly where I want to go with my major and stuff like that. But no, I made some really good connections there, and like I was really lucky to be able to work remotely for that over with COVID. And I actually start this new position next week, like a week from today. I'm going to be a wetland specialist slash wildlife biologist for the Morris County Mosquito Control Division. and like they basically focus on controlling mosquito, tick, and bee populations, and the controlling like the associated diseases spread by them. So like Zika, like heartworm, and stuff like that. And I don't really have enough information about that because I haven't started. Um, yeah, that's where I'm at. Here's like some contact info. I could drop that into the chat and let me know if you have any questions.
Yes. We're gonna hold off on the questions for the end, but definitely do have some questions. So Genevieve, if you can present too.
Sure. I'll share my screen as well. I made a little bit of a PowerPoint. Let's see. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Awesome. So I wasn't sure how formal this would be. So it's a bit of a lengthy presentation, but I'll fly by it. So my name is Genevieve, and I graduated SEBS in 2018 with a degree in environmental policy, institutions, and behavior. I definitely tried my hand at a lot of different things while being there, especially because I had transferred from George Washington University, where I had intended on pursuing journalism, but had later discovered that it was not the right path for me. So getting to Rutgers, I had this idea that perhaps I would pursue more of a policy or social science side of everything and focusing on human ecology. So yeah, like I said, I transferred to Rutgers in 2015. I minored in sustainability and did some research with Dr. Van Abs, Dr. Karen O'Neill, and mostly focused on social science projects and system reliability and coastal resilience and policies related to that. And while I'm not going to lie, it was not my most fascinating topics that you can possibly research, I have found that it was valuable experience in that more than anything, it taught me what I don't like and perhaps what I don't want to pursue. So I always think that's a good takeaway from any internship or club that you find is not right for you. At least you have tested out the waters a bit. I was part of the Alpha Zeta fraternity. I did the EPIP trail. I was a FIGS peer instructor. And I attended the Green program in Iceland, which was a really cool experience, focusing on renewable energy technology in Iceland. So I had a variety of internships throughout my time at Rutgers. Let's see, so my favorite by far was the MAWA Environmental Volunteers Organization, and that's what really sparked my interest in this field. It was kind of just like a shot in the dark. I Googled environmental internships when I was transferring from GW to Rutgers and found this organization. And here I worked on a small sustainable farm in northern New Jersey, and was able to learn beekeeping and trail maintenance and well, more gardening than farming. But it was a great experience that kind of set me on the trajectory that I'm on now. In addition to that, I guess most importantly started interning at a consulting firm called Greener by Design, which is located in New Brunswick as well. And they focus mainly on energy and planning. But when I had started there, the main focus was on renewable energy, energy efficiency, grid resiliency, all that sorts of stuff. So yeah, so once again, I got hired part-time my senior year and then started full-time and worked till last summer. And I focused, like I said, renewable energy projects, so a lot of solar PV, offshore wind. We had our hands in a bunch of bids for the offshore wind projects in Atlantic City and off the coast of New York State. We also worked, the firm itself kind of managed the Clean Cities Coalition, which is involved in clean and alternative transportation fuels. So we did a lot of work engaging stakeholders and promoting hydrogen fuel cells, compressed natural gas, electric vehicles, and really talking with the practitioners and folks that were making these transitions to gauge how it was going. And ultimately all the data that we collected was fed back to the Department of Energy. So we did periodic reports on those sorts of things. Besides that, we worked a lot with the New Jersey Clean Energy Program. They have a ton of subsidized programs, and lots of funding for people who want to have a lower carbon footprint. And then energy resiliency became a really big part of the firm. I'm not sure if anyone has heard about microgrids, but it's this idea to increase resiliency of your system, especially in light of Hurricane Sandy and other events, to sort of have a system where you could separate from the macro grid and rely on these what are known as like distributed energy resources. So like solar energy, or, you know, unfortunately, sometimes they'll have like a temporary diesel generator to back up, but really have like massive amounts of storage that in case of an emergency situation, a storm, an attack, anything like that, you know, you would have essential services still up and running. So like your police departments, fire departments, hospitals, and even like we were working in Sea Caucus, and they have these major data centers connected to Wall Street, and like there was a lot of big projects and funding going into keeping that up if the grid were ever to go down. As I continued to work in the firm, I wanted to, I guess, move more into open space planning because I had more of a passion for outdoor work. So we advised a bunch of municipalities and counties about ecotourism, and specifically in relation to economic development. We started working with the Open Space Institute about a bunch of trails and greenways. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of it, but there is now a massive greenway plan to connect Montclair to Jersey City that we worked on extensively. There's another trail being developed around the Booton Reservoir that supplies water to Jersey City. So it was like a whole logistical government relations issue, but eventually got kind of worked out. We do a lot of brownfield redevelopment. So we would work with the community solar program at the BPU to kind of give a second life to these former either Superfund sites or just damaged areas. So like we were working on a lot of capped landfills that wanted to use their space to generate solar and feed it back to the grid, specifically to people in lower income communities who couldn't generate it themselves. So they would save money, they would be using a cleaner fuel and all that sorts of thing. And then we started to emerge into sustainable indoor agriculture, which was fascinating, but didn't end up taking off to the extent that I'd hoped it would, but maybe in the future. So I kind of synthesized the skills I wish I had learned in college, and then the skills that I have learned after. I had wished I took ArcGIS, which I know a bunch of people have sort of touched on. It's an incredibly valuable skill pretty much no matter what you're doing. So I'd encourage you, like I didn't do it in college. I signed up for a Friday course and decided that Friday afternoon was not fun to be in class. So instead I decided to audit courses once I got out of school, and then got a certificate from the Office of Continuing Professional Education. I wish I learned anything about public finance, which I had to kind of piece together on the job. R and Python too. I'm currently learning R in a stats class, which is awful, but it's very valuable. And then some other skills that I think are valuable pretty much wherever you go in this field, and maybe beyond that as well, is like grant writing, budgeting, project management, and what is perhaps considered to be more of the soft skills like networking and team building. Those come in handy really wherever you go. So these are just some pictures. I got into gardening and beekeeping through that organization. And that's kind of a fun side project though, because I can't pursue it as a research. I kind of do it outside of that. I'm currently in graduate school. I'm part of the Yale School of the Environment, where I'm studying a Master of Forestry student. It's a 2-year program. I'm currently at the School Forest in Northern Connecticut, where we're here for a silviculture class and working on like prescribed burns and thinnings and all that sorts of stuff. I'm hoping to concentrate more on agroforestry and conservation, but it's all to be determined. I'm only a first year, so I have some time. This summer, I'll be working as an apprentice to the forester located here. So it'd be a lot of, forest management, and it's a totally broad category. So there's a lot going on, and I have no idea what I'm going to do post-grad. So that's to be determined. And I'm curious to hear what the other speakers have to say about all that. The picture in the left-hand corner is the camp that I'm currently at, and the bottom right is a prescribed burn I did in the fall. I'm working as an editorial research assistant at Yale Environment 360, which is a great online environmental publication. I don't write for them, but I do research, and it has fantastic news. So I would recommend that you take a look at it. And then I just included some of like my inspiration. As a kid, I always enjoyed, like Survivorman. I always had a subscription to National Geographic. Jane Goodall was always my hero and my idol. So I guess I'm just here to say, like, I perhaps was discouraged starting college from pursuing ecology, which is, I think, more of the direction I would have gone in. But ultimately, like, your career will change and you have lots of opportunities to continue to learn and grow. And it's just to say that if you're unhappy in a position or a major, you can always change that. And there's tons of opportunities, and we're in such a lucky position that they're only going to continue to grow. So your interest can kind of expand where you want it to. And there's lots of room for leadership positions too. So I have my contact information out, which Lori can also send if you ever want to chat more privately or just ask questions. So
Thank you so much. Okay. Now we're going to start to ask questions.
I have a quick question for all of the panelists. Sorry, I'm like walking into my room right now, but yeah, so I think it's so interesting how pretty much all of you guys kind of didn't really start off in ecology specifically. So I'm actually an environmental engineering major, and I'm interested in going into ecology for graduate school and beyond. So it was just interesting hearing about how you kind of had that inspiration before and you kind of just didn't find that path when you started college. So I guess, what was your defining experience pretty much that kind of inspired you to kind of switch to ecology from what you had originally intended on majoring in?
Well, for me, I think one of the things like was just like this kind of like environmental field, like this specific circle of it, is just kind of like most people don't know it exists until they get to college, and maybe get to college you don't find out it exists. For me, it like there wasn't like an exact moment. It was like taking classes with like labs outside and like seeing the projects that you would do. I think like one of the things that really got me into it was like kind of like of this like work you put into like your projects, and like when you finish something you see like there's like a visual, like it's very like gratifying, like seeing the accomplishments, and then like seeing like where you're like working on a trail or you're doing an installation, like seeing like the benefit of it, like actually like it was like seeing the benefit of it actually being used was like a very like gratifying thing for me.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jason there. Like for me, I actually have some type of defining moment. As I said, going into ecology, growing up in New York City, not that much nature going on, so a lot of the things I was learning and hearing, I wasn't too familiar with, and I was discouraged at times. But I mentioned the field techniques course. I luckily had a great group of other ecology students in that class. Field techniques was like you're out for 2 weeks. 1 week you're doing like silviculture and forestry work. Second week you're doing like water work on wetlands. And the second week we're out on Cape May. And there was a time where we just were out on the wetlands. It was like raining. The weather was terrible. There was like forest flies everywhere, like biting our faces. But it was just so nice and it was so great just to be out in that environment. What year did I take it? I took it 2017. Wait, 2018. Yeah, 2018. I took it May of 2018. But yeah, just being out there in the environment like that, it just felt really, really great and natural. And I wanted to work like there in these wetlands, in these salt marshes, because I felt like these areas are really beautiful, and I felt like these are places that we need to conserve and keep protected. And And that was my own personal moment where I was like, okay, I want to do this, which is why I'm super happy that I'm working down in Cape May with the Nature Conservancy. So everything's kind of heading towards that. I'm like, I'm not looking at grad school at the moment. If I were, I'm looking more towards probably water systems or some type of hydrology, because water's important, but I really feel like wetlands and everything else, these are places that I want to work out personally. So that was my defining moment on not only like my confidence in ecology, but where I want to go with it. So I hope my answer sufficed.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like by year I meant like what year of college, like
Sounded like
sophomore
his
year.
junior year.
Oh, yeah, it was like my junior year.
Okay,
I-
all right. Cause like I'm wondering like when I should start doing it because of all the COVID stuff, kind of messing everything up. I'm
Yeah,
just kind of
you
trying to sort
can
things out.
take field techniques your junior and senior year. I believe even if you're going to graduate that year, it's like you take the course like a little bit before and everything. So
Yeah.
that, but yeah.
All right, cool.
I would also recommend. I didn't get to take field techniques because of scheduling issues, but if Rick Lathrop is still offering winter field ecology, that's what I took. You basically spend spring break up in the Adirondacks, and you do kind of like what you would be doing in like field techniques, but like during winter. So that was a really good field experience for me because I couldn't take the class that Mikhail took.
Morgan, I was about to bore everybody with an anecdote about my experience, but I think I should step back and ask you something about your question. Do you feel like at the moment there's some barrier that you have to overcome, or are you uncertain about what you want?
No, because I think recently for me, I kind of had a academic and career shift because I was, I don't know, under the impression that I was going to be in consulting, doing some kind of engineering position. And then I actually did get an internship at the Conserve Wildlife Foundation. Genevieve, I saw that you also worked there, so that was cool. And I think that was my defining moment. So I just wanted to hear what everyone else's perspectives were and just get a feel of, yeah, because it's just interesting to hear about and see like my own experiences and all of your experiences.
That's awesome, and I'm glad to hear it. I will briefly tell you folks the story that I resisted telling you earlier, only because I want to give a shout out to one of my mentors who's long since retired and I haven't spoken to. It's a guy named Doc Applegate. Jim was his first name. Some of you, if you graduated long enough ago, might have still gotten to interact with him even after you retired, because he was very active in the Rutgers community and he constantly had people over, including for some of the field courses and stuff, right to his place. Doc Applegate, when I joined Rutgers, was the director of the Natural Resource Management Program, which was the only thing they had. They didn't actually have an ecology and evolution program, certainly not for undergrads. And so one of the barriers that I had was not that I didn't want to be an ecologist and I didn't know that I wanted to study ecology at Rutgers, but the fact that the curriculum didn't actually say anywhere, this is the ecology program, because there wasn't one. What I discovered a little later after I, had my orientation and stuff was there was an ecology and evolution option under the Natural Resource Management program. However, I didn't even see the Natural Resource Management program because of the way that the curriculum was set up. So what I ended up going to initially and what I was assigned to was the Environmental Sciences department, which was upstairs. I went and spoke to the guidance counselor who was assigned to me, who was supposed to be my undergraduate advisor if all went well. And that was Marie Sawirski, who's also probably long retired now. But she and I had a 5-minute chat and she's like, I don't think you belong here. We could probably do fun things together, but you should probably talk to somebody downstairs. Why don't you look on the wall and see who's in charge of the programs and find out. So I took her advice. First person I saw on the wall was Doc Applegate. Had a 5-minute chat with him and he decided I was in the right place. He also decided to take me under his wing, and he was how do I put this succinctly? Imagine cowboy stereotype American, big, burly, everything's American. He was like that, except he had done everything under the sun, and he was a fantastic scientist, and he knew how to network and stuff. After talking to me, he already had a sense of who I should probably choose as my advisor, and he knew what I was going to do, but he didn't put that on me, and he didn't say it to me. What he did instead was walk me around the entire department, and everybody who was in their office at the time, he got me to shake their hand, talk to them for a little bit about what they're doing and why. And the reason I bring that up, apart from the fact that it's out of love for the guy who made that happen for me, was I didn't realize how important it was to talk to people about what they do and all the variations on it. Even to say that you're an ecologist doesn't tell you anything, because there's so many subdivisions and specializations of ecology. And when you're coming in as an undergrad and you didn't even know that environmental science isn't what you were looking for, it's very sort of overwhelming to go into that and to then try to plan out ahead, okay, I need to get this many credits in order to graduate, regardless of what I choose, makes it intimidating as heck. And then later, as you start to grow up, you realize also, there's a pressure on you to get a real job at some point and to make a difference in society. And as you get more passionate about your field, that pressure becomes stronger and takes on weird forms. So to have that experience where I got to talk to people and sort of refine my own ideas and figure out what's right for me and what's not, it's like what Genevieve was saying earlier. I think that's huge. It's something that stuck with me the rest of my life, and it made life a little easier in some ways.
Another question was, what was your favorite Rutgers class you took or one you regret not taking?
My favorite one was definitely ornithology. I took that in the summer, and it was kind of like the best summer class because you get to hang out with. I don't know if Mike Allen still teaches it, but you just wake up like really early in the morning and like just go bird watching. So like that was just always like I was always looking forward to that that summer. That was a really good summer class.
That one was my second favorite class, and for all the reasons you just said. My first favorite was one that may not be taught anymore. It was a first year requirement of the ecology and evolution option under natural resource management. It was called Perspectives on Environmental Issues. Sorry, Environment and Agriculture at the time. That course had a lot of the professors all sort of team teaching it, but on the first day of class, they didn't let you know that. And you walked in, there's a guy in a suit. I'm forgetting who this was, but he was one of the deans, academic deans. And he pretended that he was coming in as a visiting scientist from a federal agency talking about the Green Revolution. And all the other professors were hidden in the background in the auditorium. And they were all taking on different roles. My friend Doc Applegate, who I just told you about, was dressed like a farmer, making sure I didn't see his face. And he's yelling at the guy from across the room saying, you don't know shit, you can't talk about this. And there are other professors all doing similar things in their own ways. That was the nature of the course. They threw us for a loop right from the beginning. And each time every professor took over, they'd do something different. They'd take us out to a different field, or they'd make us do a different lab experiment, or they'd sort of just talk things out and argue with us and yell at us. But we'd always bring it back together. So it was a lot of fun, and it sort of set the tone for a lot of the other work that I did, helped me to sort of make connections.
I didn't take any ecology classes at Rutgers, but I would say that my favorite was Intro to Human Ecology with Dr. Clark. That just kind of opened my brain up to just this whole field and the social aspect of ecology, especially. So though I totally regret not taking any of these classes in undergrad, and I would, if I could do it again, I would. It was crucial to my understanding, and it was like, I think, a formative class for sure.
I'd have to agree with that too. I almost forgot about that class, but that was like the only class I actually read every single thing that was given to me, and that was really great. Just because it really added the whole social aspect of conservation work and that kind of stuff. It really brought the human element of what you do into it. So that was an amazing class. I'm pretty sure he retired already. I'm not sure if the
I
class.
was about to ask
Yeah,
if he's still teaching. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think he retired 2019, but the class is called Intro to Human Ecology. I'm sure someone is still teaching it.
Yeah.
That's like a
Oh,
huge
yeah. I took it actually last semester. I took it. It was great.
Yeah, that was amazing. I'm glad that it's
Aiden was
still
it?
being taught.
So Aiden, was it Dr. Clark or someone else?
No, it's Dr. Lockwood, but she was good too.
Julie
She was good.
Lockwood.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah,
she's
no,
good.
she was there for it.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. The class I taking it's only ornithology. I feel like I was on taking it, so I took that class. One because like a lot of my jobs, I kind of became the designated bird guy, so having ornithology would have been super handy, and I just heard really good things about it. And the class that I also really liked, other than field techniques, was agroecology with Dr. Robson, I believe. And it was just really good because it was eye opening to seeing how interconnected agriculture and ecology like came in together, and just how both of them affect each other was really great to see. So if that class is still offered, definitely take agroecology. It's only one guy who teaches it, so definitely take it. And we got to do a presentation on anything that we wanted at the end. Someone brought in like blueberry stuff, and it was like blueberry wine. So that was really cool. Had it in class. It was great. So yeah.
I'm just looking at the time. It's 7:02, and I just want to ask one more question before we leave. Can you, or well, not a question. Well, actually, yes. Are there any job searching tips that you guys can provide for some of our juniors that are looking for internships and job opportunities for the summer or next year?
Um,
I'd say definitely, especially for like seasonal like tech work, like you want to look like months in advance. Like I was looking before like I got my position, like I was looking for stuff that started like either this month or next month, and like a lot of those job postings get put up in January and like February. So definitely be on the early side of that stuff, because especially if you wait a little bit like later on, you might be doing like a million applications at once. So definitely space out like looking at jobs because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. And yeah, definitely look early. And yeah, try to um, like look at as many different job boards as you can. Obviously, USA Jobs. Uh, I think the Texas A&M one was a really big one. Um, and definitely reach out to your professors too. That was like how I got my first position. Like, I asked one of my professors that I did research with, and like they sent me a job posting that wasn't even posted up publicly. So definitely like make those connections with your professors. Like, they're like really good resources, like, especially in our major, because I feel like I talk to a lot of people in like other majors, and like they're like don't even talk to professors at all. So I think that's one of the strengths of our department. Like they're very approachable professors.
yeah, definitely have to agree with thing what Jay said in regards to January and February. So many. That's when the field season is. So definitely a lot of opportunities are there, and that's a good way to, especially once you're starting off, like either right out of school or if you're waiting for something over the summer. Great time to build a lot of experience and figuring out what type of work that you want to do. In terms of interviews, make sure to include like what you're passionate about. A lot of these professionals, like yeah, they know a lot, but they want to know that you're like really into the work that you're about to do, what you're about to commit into. Um, like the Nature Conservancy one that I just did, they were just really happy about how like excited I was just to be able to work, just be able to like work outside and kind of lead my own projects, because that's what I will be doing down there as well. So just um, show you're just like for it, and don't be afraid to like mention things that you've done also. So yeah.
Yeah, like, even if it's like unrelated, like if you could like talk about something and like be really confident about it, like and like whoever's interviewing you doesn't really know much, like very much about that like subject. Like if you could show like that you could like really like you have like a mastery over something, that's always like invaluable.
Yeah, 100%. My last interview, I had on my resume how I have a podcast, and they asked me about that on the job interview, and I was like, oh, yeah, I do. And they asked me like, oh, how's that going? Blah blah. Because all these places also they want to be able to effectively communicate like their work to the regular people also. So you having that individual skill and like technology and everything could also come in handy. So okay, I'm done now. Anyone else can go?
Yeah, I'll just echo what's been said. Apply early, cast a wide net, talk to your professors for sure. I got a lot through that. Talk to your classmates. Don't be afraid to stalk people on LinkedIn and check out their career path, see what they've done, look for openings that way. And don't discount the power of a good Google search. I mean, you can find an amazing array of positions online. So just keep track of what you're doing. And if you want to reach out to us too, we may not know, but we'd be happy to point you in a direction. There's also a Facebook group called New Jersey Emerging Conservation Professionals, and there's always job postings on there. And I'm sure most departments also have a Facebook group where alumni will post. I know for Alpha Zeta, that happens a lot too. So if I become privy to any of them, I'd be happy to share. But like I said, just look in every place you can imagine.
Yeah, New Jersey Emerging Conservation Professionals is like that's like a must like on Facebook. Like people are like throwing jobs there like every day. It like I applied to like half my jobs from there, honestly. And I think there's one for the Department of Human Ecology, but I have to double check. But I could look into that.
There is.
But
There is.
oh, yeah. But, yeah, and to echo what you said, like definitely cast a wide net. Like whether it's like NGOs, like local government stuff, environmental consulting, like don't pigeonhole yourself. Like even if like the job description doesn't seem like you'd be an ideal fit, like just like getting a leg in the door is like can do so much for you.
I ranted on my own experience on that topic, so I second that completely. Only things I'll add is sort of take advantage also of listservs if you can. I happen to find a lot of stuff on Ecolog regularly. And whatever you do, don't let the imposter syndrome get the best of you as you start applying for stuff, especially if you're facing a lot of non-responses or rejections. It's very easy to get down and to get fed up with this and start doubting your own skills. Don't let that happen.
So, guess we're going to conclude the meeting. Congrats to Jason and Mikhail for your new job positions. All good vibes going around. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Stay safe. And if you guys need anything, just email me. But I'll send the contact information of everyone that was presenting today, tonight or tomorrow night, okay? So
thanks for organizing, Lori. Great to see you, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
No problem. Stay safe, everyone.
Take care.